So if you look at the Ontario legislation and policy on return to work, it actually appears to be quite good. A plain reading of the language, it looks like people should get reemployed through this system. And since we had two major victories in this area, in 2007 we had available added to our legislation so that the suitable occupation has to be not just medically suitable but also available. So that now lines up with the Quebec legislation. And in addition to that, in around 2012, I'm not sure exactly when, we had human rights language added to the return to work policies so that the employer, it was written right in the policy that the employer was required to accommodate to the point of undue hardship, and that the board was to take into account the worker's personal vocational characteristics as well as any impairments as the result of pre-existing conditions. However, these major changes to law and policy did not lead to better return to work plans or outcomes for injured workers. And in fact, since 2010, the whole deeming thing has become so aggressive in Ontario that full LOE payments to injured workers have precipitously fallen over the last 10 years. And the board's stated goal is to reduce full LOE to, I think they're aiming for 6 weeks at this point before people are either deemed out of the system or back with the injury employer. Now, how did this happen? One is on the suitability issue. The board takes a very, I don't know how they do it. It's, I mean, for one thing, they use very broad occupational codes. So the most common suitable occupation is customer service rep, but that includes a whole range of jobs, including retail sales clerk, which involves usually a lot of physical work in shelving, folding clothes, stocking shelves. It also includes telephone inquiry clerk, which involves sitting at a desk answering a phone. So someone with a shoulder injury couldn't be a retail sales clerk, but they could be a telephone inquiry clerk, so they get slotted into that. And then on the availability side, the return to work specialist will just do an internet search about what jobs are advertised. Now, those internet job ads don't usually include a full functional abilities analysis, but if it fits into that particular code, then that job will be deemed to be both suitable and available for that particular worker. What the board doesn't take into account, and never has, is the amount of discrimination that people with permanent impairments face when they go to apply for jobs, nor do they take into account the personal life experiences or circumstances of the injured worker who may need to stay in a particular community because they're looking after a sick parent, or they have children and are relying on relatives to provide childcare for that child. So this is how injured workers end up getting screwed over as far as any lost benefits go. So I was trying to think about solutions to this, and one thing that some advocates have done is, but this depends on the injured worker having some money, or a lawyer working in private practice, working on a contingency basis can do this, is get a high quality vocational assessment of the injured worker. If you get one of those, and those run $2,000 to $3,000, then you do have a good case if you finally get to the tribunal and can argue that the suitable occupation isn't actually suitable or available. The board is supposed to do vocational assessments, but they are of highly variable quality. Sometimes you see some good ones. Sometimes you see some that are just crap. What I've heard throughout the day today is one of the major problems is the relative lack of power of injured workers in this situation. And one of the ways, of course, to remedy that is through greater unionization, but we are in a situation of decreasing unionization, not increasing. And the other I can think of is a more robust social safety net. And so increasing welfare rates so that an injured worker can, well, a worker before they're injured can choose to refuse to do unsafe work or to avoid injury and can have the option of having welfare benefits, or refusing to, after they're injured, refusing to go back to work where they might be re-injured. And I'm very excited that more and more people are talking about universal basic income, because I think that would be an excellent way to balance out the power between the employee and the employer. In our current situation with vocational rehabilitation programs at the board, we end up with really perverse outcomes, and with good work transition plans that include like a 3-year community college program are only offered to high income earners. So people who were making $80,000 a year or more before their injury and can't go back to being construction workers or pipe fitters or whatever. Those people are being offered these community college programs, but they don't want them, because from their perspective, they're better off to be deemed out at minimum wage, because they can still get $40,000 or $50,000 a year in partial loss of earnings benefits. And on the other hand, the precarious workers, the minimum wage workers, they are not being offered these high quality work transition plans because they were not making very much money before. That just seems to be ridiculous to me, that especially in our world of changing work, and you know, employment, labor shortages in tech industries, why not train up these injured workers who are making $14 an hour to be able to do those jobs? Maybe it shouldn't be a cost that's borne completely by the workers' compensation system, but it would seem to make more sense to actually look at the individual worker and what their potential is and try to maximize that potential, as opposed to just trying to reduce the cost to the system.
Thank you.